Do you need cyber liability insurance? Stick around because we're going to talk about what it is, what it covers, what it may not cover, the two different types, and whether or not it's right for you. So I'm Scott Radigan, a functional lawyer and Origins Incubator, and cyber liability is something that I do recommend that everybody that I talk to at least ask their insurance agent about. So before we go any further, I'm not an insurance professional, but you definitely want to keep watching to kind of see what this is all about, because it is one of my 4 policies that I do recommend. Just briefly, we'll put a link down below, but just briefly, those 4 are general malpractice, telemedicine, cyber liability, and especially if you have a physical location, a business owner's policy, or BOP, or sometimes called just general liability. So those are the 4, and as you can see, cyber is in there. So what is cyber liability insurance? It protects small businesses from the high costs of a data breach or a malicious software attack. So it covers expenses, and we'll get into more detail, but customer notification in the case of HIPAA, especially, you need to notify all customers. Credit monitoring, possibly for all of the affected parties if it's a credit card issue, legal fees, and fines. All right. Why do you need insurance for this? Can you just self-insure? Yeah, you can, but studies have shown that more than 60% of businesses that get attacked go out of business within 6 months. So it is kind of a big deal, and it's especially a bigger deal when it comes to HIPAA, because there's increased liability there if there's a breach. So if your company needs and handles sensitive data, which healthcare providers do, you probably want to ask your insurance professional about cyber liability, because hackers often target retailers, healthcare organizations, and then financial service providers like banks and credit card processors. But really anybody is subject to this. So there are 2 types. One is first-party coverage. Most of you will fall into this category. And then there's third-party coverage. So first-party coverage helps cover expenses when your systems or your network are breached or your data is stolen. And third-party offers protection when a client sues your company for failing to prevent a breach at their business. So to give you a concrete example of this, a third-party coverage business might be one like your EMR, right? Your EMR has said to you it's HIPAA compliant, totally safe, and nothing can be 100% safe, but it's their job to make sure it's safe. And so if something happened to your data through their servers, you could then turn around and sue their company for all the fines that you've had to lay out. So third-party companies, people like EMRs, maybe IT vendors, software service providers that have a bunch of clients that are relying on them to keep the data safe. Whereas you, as a first-party coverage, are more concerned about what happens on your network, on your computer, to your clients. And so that's the main difference. So first-party coverage, we're going to focus on that for the purposes of this video. Involve costs that directly impact your business. It does cover expenses when your network is hacked or your data is breached. It can cover things like cyber extortion payments. This is like ransom attacks or ransomware attacks, where they freeze all your assets on your computer, and they demand you pay, a ransom in order to get it all back, right? It can also include hiring an expert to investigate the breach, to assist with regulatory compliance with OCR for HIPAA, to notifying affected customers. There is a mandatory notification portion of HIPAA if you're not up to date, but we'll just leave it at that for now. If there's a breach of more than 500 records, you have to notify all of them, and you may even have to notify the local media. So they'll help you with that. Customer credit card, of course, but it might also cover fraud monitoring services. So in the past decade or so, Target and a bunch of other retailers have had data breaches, and part of their settlement, or part of the way that they go about rectifying that, is they will help people whose sensitive data get compromised. They will pay for a year of credit monitoring services along those lines. So your cyber liability may include that. Crisis management, if you have a PR team, and also interrupted business expenses. So if you can't run your business for 30 days, you just then lost a whole month's worth of revenue. They may cover that. They may cover the cost of hiring more staff, renting more equipment, or purchasing, additional security. We're going to skip what third-party cyber liability covers. For most of you, this isn't going to apply, but if you are a third-party service provider, you should ask your insurance agent or company about adding cyber to your plan. How much does it cost? A median amount for small businesses is about $140 a month, or almost $1,700 a year. However, that varies on a number of factors, as it always does, by industry, by the amount of employees you have, by how many devices you have and how safe you are on those. Coverage limits that you select, whether it's 100,000 or 100 million, will dictate the policy premiums that you have to pay. And then, how much coverage do you want? Do you want to have all that covered, or just, the bare bones? How do cyber attacks happen? Usually it's outsiders. Sometimes it's a phishing scam with an email link that's no good. I don't know how to turn this off, but I get an email probably twice a week that says I have infringed on somebody's copyright by having posted copyright stuff on my website. Click this link to download it and see what they're talking about, so that I don't have to pay fines or they don't sue me in court. I'm smart enough to know that that is just a scam. Just the English is really bad. And also I have a dedicated DCMA takedown notice in my terms and conditions on my website, which has prevented me from clicking on that link in the past, because I said, wait a second. So go down and check it out, because there's a step-by-step process for people like that. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go and watch my terms and conditions video, which we'll have to link to here too. But those sorts of things are what lead to cyber attacks. And really, we're in the 2022, we're all pretty sophisticated users of computers and the internet. And, you just know it's sort of a matter of time. Now, I don't get any money if you buy a cyber liability plan. This isn't sponsored by anybody. I don't have any affiliate links in this post. This is purely to give you education. You guys know about Target and all of those places that have had the cyber attacks, so I won't give you concrete examples there, but you should know that if HIPAA doesn't just consider it a breach when, or the Office of Civil Rights doesn't just consider it a breach when records are accessed. It's like a lot of times, most of the time, HIPAA breaches come from stolen laptops or stolen personal devices like phones. As soon as that's in somebody else's hands, they consider that a breach. So it's not necessarily that it's accessed, just that they have the ability to access it. So as soon as your files get ransomwared, that person who is holding you hostage for a ransom now has access to all those records. And so every record in their possession is now a breach. And I don't want to scare you, but the fines for HIPAA breaches, assuming they do fine you, because sometimes you can get away without a fine, but the fines range from $500 to $5,000 per record. So it adds up really, really quickly. So I don't want to scare you on this, but it is something that you should be aware of, and you should ask your insurance agent or insurance carrier about whether your general liability coverage includes cyber, whether it doesn't, whether your malpractice or telemedicine practice policies include cyber liability coverage or not. It may already be in your policies, but definitely double check and see if that is right for you. If you have any questions, you know where to find us, functionallawyer.com, originsincubator.com, and we'll see you in the next video.